Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to be here to give our Aldermen meeting reports. I want to give a special thanks to Forsyth Headline News, who is one of the primary sponsors of the Branson Statesman. We always talk about the Branson Statesman in our reports because it's so important. We've finished our third article entitled Crime, speaking about some of the crime issues in our community. Some of you may have seen Timothy Haygood, a headlining performer in this community. His car was stolen right outside of his house the other day. And so it's just a prime example of how this community is moving in a direction that we do not want it to move in. So we're going to absolutely put a stop to that and make sure that crime does never define Branson. So this is the September 28th. I'm coming to you the next day. We're doing it in a much more professional way as opposed to just doing the live streams like we did before. We're making them bigger and better so that you guys can have the best audio quality and everything it takes for these reports to come at you. So the mayor proclaimed last night about National Night Out. That speaks a little bit to what we were talking about with the crime issue. National Night Out is a thing that happens all around the country, and local police departments set up little podiums in little areas. So one will be in Ward 1, one will be in Ward 2 and Ward 3, where they get together, meet the community. It's often said that community policing is the best policing, and so if you have your officers live in the community and know the community, that's the best bet for them going forward. So the mayor proclaimed that. I'll let you guys know on my Facebook page all about when the dates are on that and how you can be involved. So we had some public speakers last night in the public comment section. One of them was Michael London. Michael has been an important ally of the Song of Hope for a long time, and he spoke about city assets, the idea that we cannot forsake our city assets and lose them. One of the things that's often talked about on Planning and Zoning and Parks Board is one of our most important assets. It's kind of funny to say, but our trees, right? Trees to a city are an incredibly important asset. Well, another one is the old moniker, and I say old for kind of a sad reason, but I'll explain that here in a minute, of Ozark Mountain Christmas. Michael explained a city asset could be like Mardi Gras in New Orleans. Well, in Branson, we have an internationally renowned celebration known as Ozark Mountain Christmas. The taglines, as Michael explained last night, can release endorphins and spark memories in individuals, and that was the entire purpose of Ozark Mountain Christmas when it was created in the late 80s, and it has been for decades something that is very important to Branson. Sadly, that has been changed and altered by some of the establishment powers that we fight back against to be America's Christmas tree city. There's a number of problems with that. I think number one, it's kind of putting focus on some of the ephemeral aspects of Christmas that, almost like the taking Christ out of Christmas type of idea when we focus on Christmas trees. But also, we're not in the American, Northwest, Pacific Northwest, where there's evergreens everywhere. If you drive through a little town, Magnolia, Mississippi, I was down doing a Florida Christmas a few years ago, and you'll see during Christmas time, each business on Main Street actually has a Christmas tree set up. If they come to Branson, yes, they're going to see one on the roundabout. Yes, they're going to see one at Civil Dollar City, but it won't look like America's Christmas tree city. So even if that tagline was something that was better than Ozark Mountain Christmas, which we don't feel it was, they're going to be disappointed if they came here for that reason. So I really appreciate Michael. I think some of the things that happened last night, which I'll get to in a second, have really energized our Song of Hope team. We're really excited about that. Another thing that got brought up, we talked about the Adoration Parade. Folks, this is something that I've fought against on Planning and Zoning, and Mayor Milton is fighting against on the board. The increased fees, not only for our Adoration Parade, Christmas Parade, but also for their Veterans Parade. They've increased their fees to where they have to pay they used to only have to pay the city a nominal fee of around $100. Now it is increased 5 times to $500. And that's not good at all, because we need to do everything we can to support the Adoration Parade and the Veterans Parade. There is nothing that is more Branson than those two parades, and putting any obstacles up in front of them is really sad. It's been a discussion in the past where maybe some businesses can come and sponsor these parades, and I would appreciate that, although that shouldn't be necessary. As a city, we do not need to be charging an arm and a leg for these things. So the next issue was a change in zoning on Blue Meadows Road. Now, Our first ever Branson Statesman article was about protecting our neighborhoods. I have fought to protect, now adding Blue Meadows Estates in, Country Bluff, Branson Heights, Friendly Hills, and Blue Meadows Estates. Essentially, the idea is if a developer comes to us on P&Z or the Board of Aldermen, I am always pro-growth and pro-business and anti-regulation for the most part, but we want to have another principle that goes alongside that, and that is preserving our neighborhoods. The idea is if there's going to be something that irreparably changes our neighborhoods, we can't have that move forward because that affects property values, property rights, which are another important thing for conservative values. So that just passed on the first reading. There's a gentleman who owns some storage units over there, and he would like to add some additional ones. So it just was on the first reading. But I'll be talking to you guys a little bit more about that as we go on. The good thing is the Planning and Zoning Commission, which I serve on, is the final authority on a special use permit. It's actually the only thing that we are the final authority on. So and that's going to be on the applicant's timeline. But when he does want to move forward, we're going to make sure that he puts up at least enough fencing, enough barriers so that it doesn't affect the rest of that neighborhood. One of the things that I do want to bring up about that issue, though, is one of our aldermen, Alderman Whitus, brought up he said the step one comment, as I like to call it. This is often said. This was said about Country Bluff Estates. This is said last night. This is just step one, is what he said. The problem with that comment is that they always use that to slightly move the goalpost down the road. And then when we get to step two and step three, we already did step one. So saying it's step one is not an adequate comment because that's the same thing that happened with Country Bluff, and then they throw up their hands and say, well, it's already been done. No, that's not adequate. Ruth asked about it dying for a lack of a second in the Planning and Zoning Commission. None of us decided to even bring it up to discussion because that's how strongly we felt about protecting that neighborhood. And the answer that was given to her was that we're following Robert's Rules of Order, that after it died for a second and then goes to the Board of Aldermen. So that's just a little explanation on that. They had a long discussion that was continued over from a study session on the fee schedules in this community, and comparing and contrasting those with other communities and making sure that we are not, again, charging an arm and a leg for different things, just the same thing as we talked about with our parades. Another frustrating comment I want to bring up is our Assistant City Manager, John Manning, who was filling in for Stan Dobbins last night. When asked a direct question by Alderwoman Ruth Denham, which fees have been waived? Again, another thing that goes back to the Country Bluff Estates project where there were fees waived, there were processes waived, which is within the legal authority. But again, is that fair to waive fees and to waive processes for certain projects over others? John Manning said, sort of bluntly, I have not waived any fees. Well, I really appreciate Alderwoman Ruth Denham for pushing that. She asked for clarity on that, and she said, I would like to see any fee waivers that have happened from the year 2019 to the year 2021. The mayor reiterated her point, and John Manning said he will get that for the board. So I'm happy to see that, and I'll obviously report to you when that happens. The last thing I'm going to discuss is the TCED vote. The TCED is the taxation district that handles the tourism tax. It's very important. The city of Branson is allowed to put 3 members on, the same as the city of, the county and Indian Point. I'm not sure how it all breaks down, but it comes out to 11 members, like I said, of which the city appoints 3. Folks, this has been something it's kind of been my white whale. We tried to get Tate Womack on last year, and that didn't happen. He used to be president of the Theater League. But this year, we very strongly encouraged 2 directors of the Theater League, Miss Sue Braun and Miss Cindy Mary, to apply for the TCED. So Cindy Mary spoke up and decided to kind of promote what she'd been doing to try to advocate for her position to be on TCED. She talked about how she helped pass the tax for the TCED, represents the businesses in the city limits, which is very important because if we're asked as aldermen to represent only the city limits of Branson, we can't have Ridgedale and all these other things coming in. We need to be Branson specific and Branson focused. grow the number of visitors to Branson. She talked about the idea that they're throwing out numbers. They always throw out numbers. It used to be 9 million tourists a year, which was inaccurate. The chamber throws out. Now they told me 11. Apparently 10. Apparently she heard 11 million visitors to Branson. It's just not accurate, folks. And business plans are equations. And when a new business comes into town and they're given the wrong integer for their equation, it's going to throw their entire business model off. So she also discussed the Moody's downgrade of Branson and providing other viewpoints from businesses that don't belong to our local chamber. So that was kind of her pitch. Sue Braun, the other one, also spoke about her experience not only with shows but also with retail. I want to point this out for a second, and I would encourage you guys to go back and watch this. Alderman Skanes, the best way to describe it is basically went on a tirade and did not want to hear from these citizens, and he kind of stomped his foot and called the question, so to speak, which an alderman has the right to do. If that gets seconded, then all discussion stops and the vote is taken. That died for a lack of a second. So it just shows you that no one was on the same page as Alderman Skanes, who wanted to limit public comment and didn't really want to hear anything that didn't go towards his view of the kind of people that wanted to be on TCED. So I was very disappointed by that, but it's obviously a pattern. At the end of the day, Rob Johns was one of the appointees that made it onto the TCED, and I'm extremely happy to report that Cindy Mary, who has been a champion of our shows for so many years, is so educated, has worked as a marketing director for many businesses in this community, including the Hughes family. She was also appointed to the TCED. So we've got a great core team that we're now working with, and I'm so excited about the future. We're going to be releasing the third Branson Statesman article. It's already been given to Forsyth Headline News to be put on the website, and we're going to release it on our Branson Statesman Facebook page as well. And then the next one that we're going to talk about, the fourth article, is going to be the principles of limited government. So I thank you guys so much for joining me today, and I'll be signing off here. Bye-bye.